Happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another episode of Drank and Champagne. I am Drank. As always, I'm joined by Champagne. Mr. Andrew Champagne with, it looks like a childhood mug.
Now, you got to be careful about this, okay?
Uh-oh.
This is my nephew, Colin.
Okay.
And these are my nieces, Caitlin and Ava.
So yes. I used to have, there was a mug that my parents used to have. It was me just with the cheesiest smile, like, because someone told me to smile. And so I just went like this.
Oh, there you go.
I was like, I think I was in like third grade or something from it. And they had that mug. I think my mom probably still has that mug somewhere in her new house. But
parents tend to do that. Yes, they tend to keep embarrassing things with their children. That is not in any way, shape, or form surprising. But no, I trot that mug out from time to time because I love my nephew and my nieces very, very much.
Awesome, Andrew. What have you been up to?
A lot. It's been a pretty busy week here in Andrew land. Had a little bit of time to where I could get some stuff sorted out for my upcoming nuptials in June. So making some progress on a couple of things there. Unfortunately, the very first thing we're going to talk about is something that hits me and not in a good way. And that is the situation that's at Gulfstream Park in South Florida. And if you haven't heard yet, the general gist is the people that run Gulfstream Park, the Stronach Group, want the horsemen to support decoupling legislation. Decoupling legislation is the same thing that killed greyhound racing in Florida. It's the same thing that wound up killing harness racing in Florida. They want to bring it to the thoroughbred ranks. There was a very contentious meeting held on Wednesday morning at Gulfstream Park between Stronach management and the horse people. There are a number of stories out there that I'm not going to get into, but the general gist was Stronach said, if you commit to supporting the decoupling measure, we'll give you 3 years. If you don't, we make no promises. I can't begin to tell you how much this pisses me off because this is the same type of strong arm tactics that the Stronach Group used in California to run the fairs out of business. First, what they wound up saying is to the CHRB, if you give the fairs dates, we'll consider selling Santa Anita. The CHRB, to their credit, smacked Santa Anita down for that. There then wound up being a situation where racing at the fairs beyond last year's fall season proved untenable. They wound up drafting some sort of an agreement to keep Pleasanton a training track that may or may not last after March. I don't like the way this is going, Josh. I think trust is earned, not given. The Stronach Group at one point had a lot of trust among people. Say what you will about Frank Stronach, and there are a number of very valid stories that are out there about Frank Stronach that I'm not going to get into right now. But the one thing that seemed constant is, while not every decision he made worked, I think we can agree in horse racing that he meant well from a business standpoint. I don't know that exists right now with current Stronach Group management. Keith Brackpool is a gentleman that is involved with this current fiasco in South Florida. Google him. That's all I will tell you. This is a bad scene. Gulfstream Park is one of those places that, if it does not run, will leave a gaping hole in the racing calendar. There will be a number of horse people that are dramatically affected by that track closing up shop. And the fact that we went from this being a breaking news story last week to allegedly someone at the meeting today saying, well, you still have Tampa, is alarming. It's incredibly unfortunate. I do not trust the people that are running these racetracks to do what is right for the sport. There's just no good way about this. There's no way this doesn't stink. My heart breaks for a lot of really good people in South Florida that have busted their butts to put forth as strong an effort as they can in some very trying circumstances. And unfortunately, because of this situation, Josh, I don't think it's going to get any better in the months ahead because horse people now have two options. They can call the Stronach Group's bluff and say, you're bluffing, And if they're wrong, Gulfstream Park has no reason to continue. Or they commit to this decoupling legislation with a figurative gun to their heads. And in 2028, we're wondering how in the world Gulfstream Park can close. Find me any good in this.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, Andrew, where you've covered horse racing professionally for many years, many different jobs, whether it's working for DRF or HRTV or TVG or freelance, the stuff you're doing now. I mean, you've done a bunch of stuff. I'm coming from obviously a completely different side, right? Where I'm relatively new to horse racing. I mean, we're talking 6 to 7 years, right? Which basically people are saying I probably got into horse racing when horse racing was already dying. But I'm obviously coming from this from the gambler perspective, right? Where you're coming at it from, and not saying that I'm not a fan. Like I don't think that's fair, but you're coming at it from more of a long time fan. You grew up with this, whereas I'm coming into it from more the gambling side. When people started talking about the need for contraction, right? And this was obviously like just on Twitter or things like that, where hey, like maybe we do have too many tracks open. Tracks that I didn't think would be part of that include Arlington Park, included Golden Gate Fields, and include Gulfstream Park. So it's pretty wild what's kind of happened the last couple of years, and I really do think this kind of happened when I first got into horse racing. But I really do think, I mean, you even go back as far as was it Portland Meadows when that closed 5-6 years ago. That was another Stronach track, and kind of caught people a little bit by surprise. But you didn't think. You thought that maybe the racing in places like, I don't know, maybe Ohio, Pennsylvania, some of like what we would consider the B, C type tracks, like heck, Nebraska, things like that. Like maybe those were the tracks where things would maybe
Really
have a hard
quick, by
time.
the way, shout out to our friend Chris Katulak over at Fauner Park. He does an amazing job.
Yeah, but when you thought, hey, this is going to contract, Gulfstream Park, that would have never been on the list. Even after the Greyhounds, after that resounding defeat, I would have never thought that would be on the chopping block, let alone, hey, you got 3 years and then we'll see what happens. Because, unfortunately, we've seen this play out too many times. Arlington was, they had the whole thing where they didn't have the slot machines, and finally they passed the legislation, and Churchill Downs, after the legislation passed, said, deal's not good enough, we're still going to close. And they took their ball and they went home. They tore down Arlington Park, and the Bears may or may not build a new stadium there. And, now even Hawthorne, is having issues with trying to get their casino up and running. And now things in Illinois are kind of just up in the air. And I guess people would tell you, hey, that had been on the downward swing for years before all this started happening. But Chicago is a major market, and from the gambling perspective, there are many very accomplished horse players who bet a ton of money, who literally don't have a home track, or I mean, they have Hawthorne, but Hawthorne has to keep both harness and thoroughbreds running because there are no other tracks. They're in an impossible situation. And I love the people at Hawthorne. I love everybody over there. I try and support them as much as I possibly can. So this isn't like supposed to be a dig. It's just kind of explaining the situation that's going on. And yeah, like to think that Florida is now going to be in that situation, is at least heading that way, is bonkers to me. It's absolutely bonkers, because I thought if you told me to name 3 states where in 20 years I thought there'd still be racing horses, I'd have it'd be New York, it'd be Kentucky, and it'd be Florida. And we've talked numerous times about the issues in California, and unfortunately the real estate over there is just getting more and more expensive. So I think at a certain point that might happen where, hey, they do have to sell Santa Anita Park. We're probably still a couple years from that, but
Make no mistake, really quickly, they don't have to sell Santa Anita Park. There does, however, come a time where if some developer walks in and says, "Hey, let me give you $8 to $10 million an acre," there is a Godfather price on the table
mhm.
there. And I think the first domino to fall is going to have to deal with Los Alamitos, because Ed Allred has kept that place going for the last however many years. That is not a gigantic moneymaker for him. He has kept it going because he loves quarter horse racing. I don't know how the rest of his family feels about that. And Ed Allred is no kid. If it winds up falling into the hands of somebody who's nowhere near as passionate about racing as he is, Los Al is in trouble, and that may very well be the first domino to fall. It's one of many reasons why I'm so sad about the Northern California circuit not really being given a fair shot to succeed, because it's not like SoCal is on firm footing. It's not like they did that and saying, oh, yeah, there's this totally stable alternative down south that'll really benefit from this. We haven't seen any tangible benefit from shutting down Northern California racing as far as benefiting SoCal is concerned. They've carted a couple of races for Northern California horses. I give them some credit for that. They're not feeding the Northern California horses to the wolves yet, but it's certainly not an ideal situation there. It's not an ideal situation in Florida. And my goodness, if it's a situation where Tampa is the only active track in the state of Florida, when not long ago, Josh, they had 4 tracks running in Florida. You had Tampa, you had Gulfstream, you had Calder / Gulfstream Park West, and you had Hialeah Park, the setting for Let It Ride. A beautiful, beautiful racetrack that has unfortunately fallen into some disrepair. If anybody out there wants to save racing in Florida and buy Hialeah Park, they would be instantly celebrated and revered. Are you listening, anyone with money? Look, I don't want to bum people out. I don't want to put things in a negative light. I pride myself on being a realist. I am not one of the sky is falling people. But if Gulfstream winds up going from being in no danger of closing less than 2 weeks ago to, oh my God, it's an absolute crisis, we don't have the money, it's inexcusable. It is an inexcusable failure of business if that is what is allowed to happen. And my heart breaks for a lot of really good, not just horse people, but people in general that would be affected by this. It's another change that is not good for the game long term, but I don't think the bean counters much care. And if
I
you're
mean,
out there and you're a bean counter and you take exception to that, prove me wrong.
I mean, how negative do you want to get to start this episode? Because
I
if you
mean,
want
I
to keep
think I
going,
think we've said what we need to say about that. It's just one of those things that's just a very sad situation. But if you've got a good line, I don't want it to go to waste.
I'm just going to tell you right now that there was a discussion among my bigger group of friends. So I probably have 20 to 25 pretty close horse racing buddies, right? We go on a couple of trips a year, or we try to. Last year, we'd been going to Kentucky Downs year after year for a while, and eventually Kentucky Downs priced us out because apparently they didn't want our kind to sit in the tables at Kentucky Downs. They wanted to save that for owners and people with more money than sense. That's fine, right? We weren't about to pay $250 a seat to sit at a fold up table out under a tent, right? They had us at like 150, but once they kept on raising those prices, we were done. But we kind of had an internal discussion, talking about people's handles. And we're talking a group of guys that probably average six figures. There's definitely guys in there that are over a million in handle. I've definitely hit six figures in years past. I don't know if I had it last year, but I've definitely hit it before. And a lot of those guys are in a couple 100,000 in handle a year. And all anyone's really talked about this year is like, how much are we really going to play this year? And we talk about we talk about the need to like grow the game. We need to get people interested. You have guys here in their late 30s to early 40s, guys with probably the most disposable income they're going to have, or I mean, they're going to have more, but all these guys with very well-paying jobs. We're talking about anybody from people in IT to day traders to all those. These are the kinds of people that we constantly hear that horse racing needs, right? These guys, and the guys who want to gamble and want to go to the track and put money through the windows. And we see the computers, we see the value just being sucked out of the game, and you see all this, and then now you see computer heaven in Gulfstream Park is now also. I mean, that's on the chopping block. It's just not a great time right now, and like, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. I know, tongue in cheek, Ed DeRosa, I think last week, posted about how it was like the lowest weekend to handle in how many years. Obviously, right? How many tracks canceled, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I understand how many tracks canceled. The fact that the attitude from some people in racing was burn the witch. Ed and I have had some animated discussions over the years. Ed was in the right on that one. All he did was report a fact. And if you want to add context to it, it's one thing. But the amount of people that responded to that saying burn the witch, horse racing, where the problem is never the problem, it's people talking about the problem. And it's been that way for, my goodness, far too long. And that's one of the reasons why we're in the situation we're in right now.
I mean, if we want to get really on it, one of the most Ed DeRosa burn the witch moments is when he posted the prices of drinks at Del Mar one year, and he was told to take it down. If you're embarrassed by how much you're charging for a drink, maybe you shouldn't charge that much. All he did was post a picture of how much you guys were charging.
Del Mar being sensitive to criticism is not new, and I'm going to stop right there.
But anyways, I'm just saying, like, the landscape right now is not great. I've basically found myself only playing at this point, basically Turfway Park. That's all I'm playing.
Hong Kong.
Oh, and Hong Kong. Yeah, sorry. I'm playing Hong Kong.
Hong Kong is a wonderful place where a lot of these problems don't happen.
Well, they do happen. I mean, the computers are all over at Hong Kong,
not to the extent that we're dealing with right now. Because right now, what we're dealing with in the States, in addition to all of the bureaucratic bullshit, is we're not breeding as many horses. The horses we breed run fewer times. Field sizes suck. Hong Kong, you at least get 12 to 14 horses a race.
And you don't breed any horses.
Exactly. If you eliminate the breeding game, look at what happens. I mean, you get horses running back every 2 or 3 weeks. You get horses that tend to at least be somewhat predictable in the way they're going to be ridden because, hey, your stewards actually have guts. I sanitized myself there. No, kidding aside, it's just, you're absolutely right. It's not a good scene. And it's one of those instances where you wonder how many people in charge actively want to make that scene better versus just kicking the can down the road and getting to retirement and making it somebody else's problem.
Yeah, so I'm a little peeved at you right now.
What did I do?
Because, well, I was gonna I asked you, hey, how are you doing? Like, because I wanted to talk about what I've been doing, and you immediately went into negative Nelly just went into Debbie Downer right away, and then I
I
had to pile
warned you in
on.
our exhaustive pre-show
I know
meeting
you
that
did. You said to give you some time. I figured that time was going to be at the end. I didn't realize you were going to jump right into
No,
it.
I said time at the beginning. You got to clean the earwax out of your ears.
Oh
Okay,
man,
we're 20 minutes in. Josh, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. No, I would like honestly. I was just like I was going to mention. I've been doing a lot of just non-horse racing stuff. To be honest
Well,
with you, I've
that's
been
good.
getting back into playing Football Manager
There
once
we
again, which we
go.
were talking a little bit about. I've Andrew, I've had this just like wild idea where you and I do a video series where we manage a team together and just do like a save. And I just have to at one point A figure out where we can find the time to do it, and B figure out how long it would take to edit this. But
Hey,
it's something that I like. I've been watching a bunch of Football Manager videos. There's a bunch of content creators out there, and for those of you who don't know what it is, this is basically a simulation game where you manage a soccer team. And by simulation, when I first started playing this game, it was not in 3D. You literally had circles moving around simulating the game. So it's really about the management, part. Like, hey, in the US, if you ever played NFL Head Coach, which I know was a real short-lived EA product, where you only coached, you didn't actually play the game. But it's fun. It's addicting. It's one of those things where like you make decisions and like you want to see how your decisions play out. So it's a ton of fun. But I've been doing that. Andrew, I did something I never thought I would ever do.
what'd you do?
I bought a record player.
Wow.
I bought a record player.
Wow.
And I bought a couple of jazz albums.
How
I'm a big
hipster
fan.
of you.
I don't know if it's just like this like thing. I'm turning 39 this year. And I don't know if it's just like now it's like, all right, well, I got to figure out what I'm gonna do in my 40s. Like, I don't know. Can I keep on playing video games? I guess I'd start collecting vinyl. Who knows? But it's like, hey, horse racing is going out. What can I waste my money away on now? But yeah, I bought a record player. I've been listening. I've been trying to spend more time away from the computer. Or actually, away from the computer. That's not fair because I literally go listen to a record downstairs in my living room, and then I have my laptop open. But away from my desk, I think it maybe is a better way because I feel like I sit here for 8 hours a day for work. But then, my free time is usually spent here. If I'm either handicapping a race, doing content like we're doing right now, playing a video game, I'm usually sitting here. So just, hey, go downstairs and hey, I'll play Football Manager. I'll play, I think it's called like Baltaro is another game I've been playing. I'll play on my laptop, just kind of chill on the couch and just listen to something and, just get away from the desk at least for a little bit. So that's been pretty nice. But yeah, like I've kind of trying to disconnect a little bit from horse racing because 2025 we're gonna be back, Andrew. We're going back. We got the full team, full squad assembled again. We got Caleb back. So we're back on our normal schedule. We got our kind of 3 videos a week that are gonna be coming out. We obviously drank champagne that you're watching and listening to now. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit all those buttons. If you're
I'm
listening,
so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
if you're listening on a podcast, go ahead and just download, do whatever you do on podcast apps. And honestly, hey, if you're doing one and not the other, do both. Helps us out. Helps get the numbers up. Hey, you know what? Just download the episode. You don't even have to listen to it. Just download it. That's fine. Set up the automatic downloads. That's all we need.
That's what I tell my fiance to do.
Just download.
Yeah, it's hit or miss, but she means well. She supports me. We're good.
My wife, I'll go, oh, did you watch this tonight? She's like, "Nah, I mean, I played the video," which means she just like played it in the background and she did something else. She like walked away or whatever. But yeah, we're gonna be going back to Thursday night streams. for the time being. We might move that around a little bit. We're going to try and kind of figure out what the plan is. And obviously, we're going to be talking about Lecomte weekend this week. Kind of, to me, has always been kind of the start of Derby season. And like, we're not obviously talking about, the big races, which tend to be the second race, right? The Rebel, the Risen Star, the what am I? Fountain of Youth.
Fountain of Youth,
Yeah.
yes.
So the
In New
second,
York for Gotham,
the
yeah.
Gotham, yeah, the second race, that's where we really usually start to see the players kind of emerge, right? But I feel like this is at least where you start. I don't know, the wheels start turning a little bit. So excited to talk about that a little bit, and obviously we're going to talk a little bit here about this Oaklawn Park Pick 4 on Saturday, which looks like a pretty interesting sequence. But yeah, we're going to be coming back to our normally scheduled stuff, and I mean, I'm just hoping, for me personally, that this kind of gets me a little bit more excited about horse racing again, because yeah, it's been a tough couple of months. Like, I honestly, you haven't seen us. We haven't streamed really since we did our award show last week, but we haven't streamed since Breeders' Cup. It just no one has really wanted to. We've all just kind of been doing different things, but we're back. We're going to get that content going out again. I know apparently people have DM'd other people, wondering if we just stopped. It's like, no, relax. We took a little break, recharged. We're coming back. Andrew's not going anywhere. Don't worry. Hopefully,
Fingers,
but
toes, and eyes all crossed on that one.
yeah, but where we are gonna go, it's Hot Springs, Arkansas here, and we got a pick 4, late pick 4 here at Oaklawn Park, and we're gonna start in race 7. Got a mile race allowance for 4-year-olds and up, and Andrew, I believe our morning line favorite in this race, and this is an oversubscribed race, by the way. This is we got 14. Only 12 are in the main body, so we got 2 AEs here in the 13 and the 14. But the number 5 Gunno, sitting at 9-5, is going to be a very, very large favorite. And Andrew, it looks like you're using Gunno here, but you're not singling Gunno. So it seems like you maybe have the similar questions that I do about this horse.
Gunno is 9-5 on the morning line. I don't know if we're going to wind up seeing 9-5. It's a 12 horse field. I have a tough time thinking any horse is going to be less than 2-1, especially a horse that has not won on a non-Horseshoe Indianapolis dirt track. I do think Gunno is going to be favored, but I think you're more likely to see 5-2, a more balanced board than what we're seeing on the morning line. Gunno makes some sense. Last time out, he was second beaten a neck against similar company, going 1 mile and a 16th. He cuts back to the 1 mile route, and I think that's going to help him. He sort of hung a little bit last time out. The blinkers go on for a barn that's 18% last year. You get a 19% rider in Christian Torres. Yes, Gunno makes sense, but he is not a lone A for me. The other A that I have is horse number 8 on the stage, and this is a race shape play for me. I think there's a fair amount of early speed in this particular race, and I think this could very well melt down in the favor of a closer. Last time out on the stage, came off a layoff of about 3 months, may have moved a little bit early at Remington Park, led in the stretch, second beaten ahead. He has not won in quite a while. But this was a horse that was seen as a potential graded stakes type horse back in his 3-year-old year in 2023. And I do think he's going to get some pace to chase second off the bench. With that in mind, he's a must-use for me at 8-1 on the morning line. I do think we're going to get something close to that price. It's a 2A, 2B situation. One of my Bs is horse number 14, the second also eligible, Lat Long. It's a similar case. This is a closer going second off the layoff that had every right to need the race last time out. This is a horse that ran third in last year's Grade 3 Lecomte. So this was another that they had some hopes for last year. Didn't quite pan out. They ran him a couple of times at Churchill Downs in the summer, ran second and third before going to the sidelines. Last time out was sort of one-paced here at Oaklawn. He ran like a horse that needed a race. He needs some luck to run here. If he does, I think he's going to take some money, and I need to use him. The other closer that I'm going to throw in is horse number 7, Hearn, shipping in from Hawthorne. This is a runner that has a win here at Oaklawn Park, albeit against weaker foes last year in a $30,000 claiming event. But this is another case where I simply think he may get the race shape he needs in order to run very, very well. This is a runner that, to me, probably needs a meltdown, but I'm looking at this race shape. I see a lot of ease with some fairly big numbers here, Josh. With that in mind, I need to use a big price closer that has shown he can run well here at Oaklawn Park. So for me, 5, 7, 8, and 14, probably leaning a little bit heavier on horses 5 and 8, with 7 and 14 serving as Bs.
Yeah, honestly, I think we had the same idea. We just went different directions in this one. I also looked at this race. I saw a ton of speed, and obviously, pay attention to scratches. Right, you see a couple speed horses scratch out, and the pace dynamics change. This is a completely different race, right? And heck, you see maybe like a horse like the 1 or the 2, like one of these closers scratches out, and only one horse scratches out, and all of a sudden, I don't know, only the 13 draws in. Well, you're getting even more pace added in if that kind of thing happens, So just kind of pay attention to where the scratches go. I did think in the right circumstances, both of the AEs make sense in this race. Right now, I'm looking at the first 12 that are in, so I didn't even pay much attention to them. But I think under the right circumstances, both of them, I think, have a shot in this race. My top pick in this race is actually the 11. I'm McDreamy here. Ramon Vasquez and John Ortiz here teaming up. And, you look at the last race, obviously, at Turfway Park. Horse went wire to wire there. But if you kind of look at the dirt tries, it seemed like this is a horse that maybe necessarily doesn't have as much early speed as shown. Obviously, at Turfway, they went 23 and 2, 46 and 3, which is pretty fast. But usually when I see even a speed horse on synthetic, it's just a different surface. They run differently here. And John Ortiz is really good with these horses that win first or after breaking their maiden. He's 19% here with this. And I mean, the price is right. You're getting 10-1 here on a horse that, is coming off a maiden win with a pretty nice figure. And I'm looking more at kind of the pace figures than I am necessarily how the horse kind of ran. And, the horse had a pretty decent late pace figure there. So this could be one that, is going to be posted outside, is going to maybe try and save a little bit of ground from the outside, not necessarily go full send. And maybe this is just kind of like a presser type horse, or maybe just even more of a push button type horse in, kind of like I don't know, just kind of like it's kind of murkied up with that synthetic try they're kind of mixed in. So I thought the 11, I'm McDreamy, made a bit of sense here, coming off that nice maiden win. And then I thought the 1, Happy Strike, this is a horse that closed into a slow pace. Well, not necessarily closed, but kind of pressed the slow pace and ended up winning, right? At the start was 2.5 lengths off. Third at second call, or first call was 2 lengths off. Made up that ground, headed at the straight, and then won. So set that kind of pressing trip, going a mile, and they didn't go all that fast. They went 24 and 49 in that race. So, just kind of thinking, hey, if there's that much more pace, this is a horse that's probably not going to be 2 lengths off, but it's probably closer to 3 or 4 lengths off at a faster pace. And this might be, a horse that's gonna be able to close in here. I love the late pace figure there. You see a 99 last time out here on Brisnet, 85 before that. You see those pace figures that are kind of just getting bigger as the race continues on. So that to me at least tells me, hey, this is probably really a presser closer type. You see EP5 here for the running designation, but it could just be, hey, had a couple of slow paces that it was involved in and just happened to be forward because of how slow the paces were. So I thought that this was another one that has got that nice late pace figure. You get Emmanuel Esquivel aboard. He's winning at 15% to start the meet. So Emmanuel Esquivel, he's getting up for a low percentage trainer at the moment. Who's only winning at 7%. But whenever I see a jock who's having pretty good success get aboard for a low percentage trainer, I think this horse, he's probably working this horse in the morning, has probably seen something and is like, hey, okay, I'll take that mount. So I thought Happy Strike, at least to me, looked like another one that could surprise here coming from off the pace. I gave a look at the two, coming in from Delta Downs. Had a nice race at Saratoga. This might be one that makes a ticket. As kind of a B or C type. But really, other than that, I'm just kind of against Gunno. I kind of saw the same thing you did. This is a horse that in the last year, broke its maiden at Turfway Park going 6 furlongs. Has got a couple wins at Indiana, Horseshoe Indianapolis, and then just has kind of been, just kind of even, just picking up checks. Nothing wrong with that, but we're looking at a 6-year-old now at this point. So obviously, it is kind of on the downslope a little bit of where the horse is going to be, and I never like to see a horse at a short price, coming in here, finish second by a neck. Sure, the third place horse came back to win out of that last race, but I kind of saw the price a little different than you. I think that Gunno has got a shot at maybe being even shorter, but obviously the nice thing about this being the opening leg is we can go ahead and we can see the board. So it'll be interesting to see what price Gunno goes off at. I wouldn't be like totally shocked if it's only the main body of the field and the 13 and 14 don't get in, that Gunno ends up at 7-5, 6-5. Obviously, I think if either the 13 or 14 goes in, then I think those honestly on paper probably are the second and third choices in this field. So yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of this horse. So I'll be against. I'm going to try with the 1 and the 11. You're going to be using Gunno. You're going to use the 7, 8, and 14 as well. And then we're going to move on here to race 8, unless you got anything else you wanted to add there.
Only that I'm happy you brought up number 11. I'm McDreamy. If we were at Turfway Park, I would love this horse. That was a pretty impressive effort last time out. That was a legitimate pace that he set. He ran off and stopped the timer in 1:35 and 1 for a 1 mile distance. That's a solid time, and he didn't have it easy that day. My concern coming to Oaklawn is I look at that pedigree and I see that he's synthetic. Hard spuns can run on a number of different surfaces, but when I see hard spun, I think turf and synthetic primarily. I've got to see it on dirt with him, but if he winds up running well in this spot, you're not going to get double-digit odds on him again anytime soon. So I applaud that. It's weird because we're approaching this race completely differently from a wagering standpoint, but we've got a lot in common about why we picked the horses we picked as far as a race shape type structure. I mean, my problem with Happy Strike isn't necessarily, any sort of running style thing. It's that I don't know what he beat last time against 35,000 non-winners of 3 life claimers, but you're getting a horse at 20-1 on the morning line that's 1-for-1 at this route of ground. I'm not going to knock that wagering strategy, not at all whatsoever. So no worries from me on that. We might not have a consensus pick 4 ticket. I'm hoping that we have a consensus late pick 3 ticket starting in race number 8. Josh, how did you see this one?
Yeah, so I looked at this race and the first thing I obviously I'm looking at the pace scenario here a little bit, and I thought that this was a much more manageable pace scenario here, right? So this wasn't going to be a race that I thought would fall apart, and even if it was, I mean, this is a 6 furlong race, so even if you see a bunch of speed, those don't necessarily always fall apart. As much as Chase wants the sprints to always fall apart, they don't always fall apart.
Shout out to Chase for going viral despite an embarrassing as all hell typo in the video that he put out. I got his video sent to me from my father, who saw it independently. that's a sign he's doing something right. Shout out to Chase. Shout out to our friend Barry Spears. We love what you guys are doing.
But yeah, we do have a mutual horse in this race, which is the number 10 horse, Hush It Honey. And this was honestly, this was kind of a horse for course play for me, right? I see a horse that's got 5 starts at Oaklawn, has got 3 wins and 1 second. Sign me up, because as Andrew, you love to point out all the time, if you cross out those last 2 tries at Churchill, and you look at the last 3 races at Oaklawn, you see a much different horse, right? You see a horse that's kind of went to Kentucky. Waters are very deep in Kentucky, especially in that allowance and claiming section. I mean, there's a reason why Linda Rice basically is able to buy every single person in the racing office nice watches and whatever else she does for Christmas, because she claims these horses from Kentucky and ships them up to New York, and there are allowance horses up there. So very, very that section of Kentucky racing, very, very salty. And so I don't know if he just waters were too deep there, or didn't like the track at Churchill. I don't know what happened, but you cross those 2 races out and you just kind of look at the Oaklawn body of work, specifically the 6 furlongs races. I mean, the last 4 all look great. So I'm thinking, hey, this is a horse. He wants to run 6 furlongs. He wants to be at Oaklawn Park. He wants Oaklawn Park to run 24/7. Like this is where he wants to be. Excuse me. But yeah, Hush It Honey, top choice, is pretty easy. And then heck, even if you look at that last race at Churchill, I mean, the first and second place winner. First place winner and the second place horse both came back to win out of that one. So obviously, real salty race. So I have no problems putting a line through those last 2 races. Hush It Honey looks to be the horse to beat. The other horse I had is an A. It's actually the 1, Dance My Way. And maybe I got my Hong Kong hat on too much here when I look at this horse. But I see a horse that just missed last time out. At a huge price, right? 64-1. Finished second by a little less than 2 lengths, and the winner came back to obviously win next time out. But you had a horse that went to the lead, but was drawn out in the 12 post, so it was pretty far out there. Now you see this horse is coming inside onto the rail. And, albeit you look back and this horse has had a couple of races at Thistledown, right, also on the rail, and maybe didn't necessarily run all that well. But, maybe this is another horse that just really, really likes Oaklawn. You got a horse that's got 5 tries here at Oaklawn, 1 win in 3 seconds. And now is getting back here on the rail, trying to back up that effort last time out. And I just think, hey, the improvement in the post position, being here on the rail, and kind of backing up that last effort, maybe you kind of get, this horse kind of gets out in the front end, and maybe this is the wire to wire type winner from the rail. So I thought Dance My Way was interesting here. Obviously, you're not getting 64-1 like you did last time. You're getting 10-1 on the morning line, but yeah, I thought this is one that maybe we might see a little improvement second off the layoff. So I like Dance My Way. And then lastly, the other horse I used was the 12 Music Mistress, and you might see a bit of a pattern here with what I've picked. This is just another horse I think that loves Oaklawn. All right, you got 10 starts, you got 3 wins in 2 seconds, and heck, you even look at the last race, and maybe you put a little bit of a line through it because it was a muddy race, and although Lori's Rocket on top, 14% mud winners, not really much mud pedigree outside of that on the bottom side. So, maybe this is one that doesn't really like the mud. You see 3 off starts. You don't see any starts in the money there. So even if you cross line through that, right, you see a horse that was 5th by 2 1/4 lengths, and then you see a win, a second, a win, all here at Oaklawn Park going 6 furlongs. So maybe this is one that's just going to finally get back to what it wants to do. Hopefully gets a nice fast track. And maybe we see Music Mistress, kind of pull an upset here at 15-1. But that's what I got here. 10 is my top pick. I'm going to be using the 1, Dance My Way, as an A as well. And then I got 1 lone B in the 12, Music Mistress. Andrew, how did you see this one?
I've got a question about Dance My Way. This is actually pretty cool. When was the last time, Josh, you saw a Colorado bred in the form?
Probably the last time I decided to be a complete degenerate and bet Arapaho.
So my fiance and I went to Colorado last summer. We missed opening day at Arapaho by a couple of weeks. I'm pretty upset about that. The time before that I went to Colorado, I missed the Arapaho season by a couple of weeks the other direction. Wonderful, wonderful place Colorado is. If they turn the heat on at any point between October and April, I might wind up moving there. That's how much I enjoy it. But had to point that out because that's not something you see every day. We do indeed have a horse in common. We share the same top pick for a lot of the same reasons. That's the 10 Hush It Honey. I'm not going to go too far in depth. What I will say is this one's lone poor effort at Oaklawn came going a mile and a 16th in the slop against stakes horses in the Martha Washington last year. That's a really easy toss, given that we're clearly dealing with a sprinter. So no worries drawing a line through that one. The other one that I'm going to be using, though, is number 4, Don't You Forget. Don't You Forget's lone poor efforts on her sheet came going down the hill at Santa Anita. That is not an easy route going down the hill at Santa Anita. Some horses very much like it. Some horses definitely don't. Don't You Forget is absolutely the latter. Now, this is a horse that has not won since January 5th of last year, but I do like a couple of the recent races in Southern California, and Peter Miller is not shipping for frequent flyer miles. He doesn't run a lot of horses at Oaklawn, but as of this recording, in 7 starts this meet, 3 wins, a second, 2/3. His horses are running. I need to have Don't You Forget on the ticket. There's another runner that I do want to at least talk a little bit about. If there are scratches elsewhere on my ticket and this one winds up drawing in, I need to use number 14, Managing Mischief. Managing Mischief is another runner whose poor efforts are explained by the fact that there's circumstances that aren't applicable in this particular race. Draw a line through the 2-back effort in the Ontario Damsel going a mile and a 16th on synthetic. Draw a line through the Lady Erie going 6 furlongs on synthetic. Draw a line through last year's Sanibel Island going 7.5 furlongs on the turf at Gulfstream. And only consider the dirt sprints. If you do that, you've got a pretty fast horse. A horse that's shown she has tactical speed, but doesn't need the lead in order to run well. I love horses like that. There are a lot of options that Rocco Bowen could have out of the gate with this one, provided she's able to run. I think she's a little bit slower than my top 2 choices. We're probably going to be the 2 betting favorites when this field goes postward. But if Managing Mischief winds up drawing in, I will at least have some saver stuff live to that horse. And if my pick 4 ticket winds up getting scratched down to a really small amount, I may very well throw her in. She would be a C, though, and I don't usually love playing C's, but I needed to at least throw that one in as potentially a long shot you might want to keep an eye on behind the 2 favorites that I think are both pretty logical.
Yeah, you also didn't mention one of your favorite angles with this horse.
Which one's that?
Which it looks like this is a horse that needs Lasix.
I mean, that's entirely possible too. I mean,
because there is one very poor, or a fairly poor turf sprint or turf effort on there, and that's that Prairie Meadows race where she did not get Lasix. So you cross that one too, and like I said, it kind of perks up a little bit, right? You see a horse that looks like it's improving, and second off the layoff. Why not? And heck, Armando Hernandez, 38% second start with a horse, so might be something to pay attention to.
Yeah, I mean, 12-1 on the morning line. I do think you're going to wind up getting that price. That's not to say, though, that I think the favorites aren't legitimate. Far from it.
All right, race 9, the Renaissance Stakes here. We got a 3-year-old 6 furlong sprint, and your morning line favorite is the 4, Kale's Angel, and 3 to 5 on the morning line. Andrew, it looks like you got this as a Stone Cold single.
I do. Kale's Angel, to me, hits me as a 1-turn horse. You look at this horse's form, you see a win going 5 furlongs on the turf at Del Mar. They tried him going a mile in the Zuma Beach, and he actually didn't run badly on that occasion. He was fourth beaten a little over 3 lengths. They then ran him in a 2-year-old race on the Breeders' Cup undercard where he set the pace and tired pretty badly. Shipped to Oaklawn going 5.5 furlongs, and that was this horse's best effort to date, romped by nearly 6 lengths. They tried him going a mile and a 16th in the Smarty Jones. At that point, when you have a 3-year-old like that, you have to at least see where they're at with potential Kentucky Derby points races. And it's not like Kale's Angel ran horribly. It's just a mile and a 16th is probably a little bit far beyond his scope. And in looking at the pedigree, you see complexity and you see a Malibu Moon mare. Yeah, 7 furlongs to a mile is probably as far as he wants to go. This cutback to 6 furlongs should hit him right between the eyes. And there's that Peter Miller guy again. I can't get too cute here. If Kale's Angel does not win, I lose, and I imagine many others lose as well. 3 to 5 on the morning line, and I think that's about right.
Yeah, this is a single A for me. Honestly, what maybe sets some alarm bells off for me is the fact that that one dirt sprint is so much better than anything else. And I know that maybe that sounds silly, right? Hey, like this is the first time he ran on a dirt sprint, and he blew the doors off everybody.
Ran too good. He ran too good.
But I don't know. I guess I question a little bit what. I don't know. I have a hard time. Peter Miller started this one sprinting on the turf, went long with it, and then immediately went short on the dirt. And after just absolutely destroying that field, decides to go long on the dirt.
Derby fever.
Yeah, it just I don't know. Like sometimes I think there's a horse in the first race I was going to mention this about that you were talking about where I think it was Gunno that I don't know. Sometimes it feels like they're just trying. They're still trying to figure out what this horse wants to do. So they're entering them in different spots, doing different things, and maybe they don't really know. They're putting blinkers on when horse hasn't run with blinker. That kind of stuff. So I don't know if this is hey, like we definitely know this horse wants to be a dirt sprinter, or hey, for some reason the horse is freaked that day. I don't know. All that to say, right? I still have it as a lone A, right? I don't hate money that much, to your point, but I do have another horse I liked a fair bit enough to use as a B, and that's a 7, Wild and Crazy Night, and this is kind of. At least to me, looks like a horse that's kind of improved every time out, right? Started off in a New Jersey state bred race at Monmouth, came right back, finished third, then finished second by a head in what was a very, very it was a key race, right? You had the winner come back and win, and then comes and wins, finally breaks the maiden open maiden at Delaware, and third place horse in that race comes back and wins. So, we really don't think of New Jersey and Delaware as being necessarily the hotbeds of horse racing these days, but there was at least some kind of talent coming out of those races, and at least the Briz figures look pretty decent there. This is one that has kind of shown a bit of versatility, right? At being able to sit off the pace or be right on it in a couple of its starts. So I thought the 7 looked pretty interesting here. Them shipping it in here, Rafael Bejarano getting aboard, who's one of the leading jocks here at Oaklawn. So, yeah, I like the 7 here as kind of a B. My guess is he's probably your second choice anyways. No, Perfect Magic's your second choice. So, I'm not necessarily sticking my neck out by, picking some long shot here, but I definitely do think that the 7 is worthy of a look in case the 4 does not fire. But I'm only going to use the 4 most prominently, and then I'm going to use the 7 as well.
My question with Wild and Crazy Night, because I did look at that horse as a potential alternative, Does the work tab scare you at all? Because I'm looking at this and I see a horse that it looks like they've had to stop on a couple of different times. I see a break from late November to late December. I see a break from late October to mid November. I see a horse that they ran on October 2nd at Delaware Park that didn't wind up returning to the work tab until October 24th. To me, there's got to be a story there. And I don't know if it's a bad story or anything like that, but it's something to where I've got some questions. Still, though, I get why you like this horse. There's some versatility there. And at least on Briz figures, he does fit. He does probably need to run a career best race in order to win this, but that's why you're going to be getting either the 6-1 morning line or I think a little bit longer than that. So I can't fault that too much.
All right. Let's move on to the payoff leg here. Race 10. We got a 6 furlong allowance race for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. We got, once again, a nice full field here of 12. Your morning line favorite is going to be the 3, Brunch Punch here, for Brad Cox and Christian Torres. And, Andrew, it looks like you're fading this horse, but I'm using Brunch Punch in this spot. I'm only using 2 horses. Brunch Punch to me kind of feels like it's kind of like the litmus test for this group, right? It's pretty consistent horse, right? He's got one bad race going at besides the maiden race, he's got one bad race at Fairgrounds going 6 furlongs. Was I don't know what happened. The horse broke well and then just kind of didn't run a step after that. But came back out of that effort to go ahead and run 3rd next time out. So obviously I don't think the horse was like hurt or anything like that, but something happened that day. But if you look at Briz figures, at least the horse is pretty consistent figures wise, right? You're seeing those mid 80s and honestly, even like those consistent speed figures are still better than a lot of these horses have run. Obviously, Brad Cox is off to a very, very weird start at Oaklawn. He's 0 for 21. He's got 4 seconds, so maybe a little snake bit, but still, I mean, like, we're not talking like 5 or 6 seconds and like 5 or 6 thirds, right, out of 21 starts. We're only talking, 4 seconds and 3 thirds here. So, I mean, obviously, probably a little snake bit in the head to be over, but I mean, maybe he should have 2 wins, right? Like maybe he should be 10%, not 0%. We're not talking a huge amount there. But you do see Christian Torres getting aboard, and the horse has been consistent, and has not run at Oaklawn yet. Maybe he takes to the surface. I don't know. I do think that maybe 5-2 is a bit short of a price, but I don't know. This horse made a bit of sense to me. I also like the 8 Absinthe. Steve Asmussen and Keith Asmussen here, and honestly, I just love the cutback for this horse. You see the horse broke its maiden at 7 furlongs. They went straight to the 1-turn mile in a salty allowance race at Saratoga in the slop, which for Gun Runner and Smart Strike shouldn't be a problem, but end up finishing 4th by 5 lengths there. Came back here to Oaklawn going that mile, finished 4th again, came back again at the mile in stakes company and finished a nice 2nd there to Hoosier Philly. And now I think you're cutting this horse back, off the long layoff. And what's interesting is you don't see the normal Steve Asmussen work pattern here, because normally you see the bullet and then you see the maintenance work. This is a horse that's coming fresh off a bullet. Now, obviously, we're about a week. We're going to be about a week and a half after that bullet, so maybe something else shows up on the work tab. I don't know, but I don't know. I just think that I love the cutback here, and I think you go back to that 7 furlong race, and that 7 furlong race I think wins this race here. So I think Absinthe can go ahead and get back to that form. And so I'm going to use the 8 Absinthe, and I'm going to use the 3 Brunch Punch, and that's going to be it for me. Andrew, where did you land?
We completely agree on Absinthe. Absinthe is one of 2As for me. You hit the nail on the head with the analysis of the work patterns. This is not a conventional Steve Asmussen work tab by any means. You see a horse coming in off of a 4 furlong work in 46-4. For Steve Asmussen, who usually doesn't ask his horses to do all that much in the mornings, that's very curious to me. My top pick, though, is number 7, Roman Grace. Roman Grace started on the NYRA circuit last spring and ran 3 very good races for Todd Pletcher. Ran second first time out behind a next out winner. Was then an easy winner going 7 furlongs at Keeneland. May have benefited from the fact that that track was very kind to early speed, but still, she won very nicely. There was reason to be optimistic. They then run her at Aqueduct in May, and she runs a very game second behind a next out winner and 7.5 lengths ahead of another next out winner. She then goes to the sidelines. So you're right in thinking, okay, something probably went wrong at some point. But she turns up for Mike Maker, who, while only 2 for 20 to this point in the meet, has 3 seconds and 6/3. So unlike Brad Cox, he is a little bit snake bit. His horses are running well. They're just not necessarily winning. And this is a runner that if she's remotely close to where she was last spring, I think has a big shot. And I think we may very well see her as the third choice in this field, which she is on the morning line. You mentioned that it looks like I'm fading Brunch Punch. That's absolutely right. I can forgive a trainer going 0 for 6, 0 for 8, 0 for 10 to start a meet. At 0 for 15, 0 for 20, I need to see it from a trainer. He's got to beat me here. And I don't think Brunch Punch towers over this field based on figures. Brunch Punch had one very strong race on November 25th, 2023 at the fairgrounds where she had a picture-perfect trip, and I don't know what she beat. She came back, ran in a stakes race that was probably a bit tougher than what she wants. They then ran her in an off-the-turf race, and then she was off again for 8 months, coming back in September at Churchill. And it's not like she ran horribly at Churchill, but I think she's supposed to win at least one of those races and just was not necessarily able to do that. She's been off since October, so the layoff is certainly something to consider. I look at this and I see a horse that was bred to be a pretty good one by constitution out of a Violence mare that Windstar Farm could have kept and decided to sell. I think this is a horse that's been a little bit falsely advertised over the course of her career. She might win, but I do not think she deserves to be favored, so I'm going against her. I mentioned my 2As. I've got 2Bs in this particular race as well. Let's look at number 1, Wise Miss, who is 15-1 on the morning line. She goes second off the layoff, and I think she needed that race last time out. Her 2 poor races, very excusable. Last February the 16th, she ran poorly and we didn't see her again until August. She came back with a couple of nice races at Delaware Park. I do think there's some speed signed on, and I think she's going to at least be going the right direction late and taking a step forward off of the last out effort. Given her likely price, I need to use her on the ticket. There's another one in here that I also need to use as well, and that's the 4, Sweet Trouble. Sweet Trouble earlier on in her career was pretty highly regarded. She ran 4th in the Las Virgenes behind a very nice Bob Baffert trainee named Feza. Only broke the maiden, though, on November the 6th of last year, going wire to wire in the slop at Churchill Downs. Now, her pedigree is all mud. She's by into mischief out of a Candy Ride mare, and Candy Ride is one of the top mud influences in the game. But I see trainer Phil D'Amato sticking with this horse, and I see a couple of nice local workouts. That December 23rd workout jumps off the page at me, and a horse that earlier on in the career put up some nice speed figures in Southern California. If he's got this one going well at age 5, I think Sweet Trouble is another horse you may want to consider at a bit of a price. My 2As, though, are Roman Grace and Absinthe in that order, using a couple of bigger prices to round things out. Just trying to beat Brunch Punch, though, who to me hits me as the most vulnerable favorite in the entire sequence. That caps off a $16 ticket that, if you're watching on YouTube, you see on the screen down below.
Yep, and that's Andrew's ticket there. 5, 7, 8, 14 with 4, 10 with 4 with 1, 4, 7, 8. It's a $16 play. And then my ticket is 1, 11 with 1, 10, 12 with 4, 7 with 3, 8. And that's a $12 play. Unfortunately, no consensus ticket.
Oh, we do have a cold pick 3 consensus ticket, though.
We do. The cold pick 3 would be 10 with 4 with 8 in the late. If you feel so compelled to play the cold drank champagne pick 3. But Andrew, what you got going on this week?
So this week, mainly focusing a lot as far as work goes on a lot of college basketball stuff over on winnersandwhiners.com and statsalt.com, another site that I've started doing a fair amount of work on. Also, of course, got Hong Kong coming up, a big Saturday card coming up at Shatin. You can find out more about that on this week's episode of You've Got to Be Shatinning Me with Josh and our buddy Matt. So cheap plug for you guys there. You're welcome.
Hey, thank you.
My horses in Hong Kong have been running well. I've got a little bit of seconditis, though. It's a case where a lot of the horses that I've really liked have run well, finished second, and in some cases finished second behind a horse that I liked underneath. There was a horse named Aurora Lady at Happy Valley earlier this week that wound up running second behind a $23 horse that I had in second. So if you're boxing my exactas, chances are you're doing pretty well. That's been a lot of fun. I very much love doing that. Also starting to chat with the Pollock Report folks about the return of the Derby Bubble, which I imagine will be coming up in about a month or two once the more serious Kentucky Derby preps wind up getting geared up. So that's always a lot of fun. Personally, a lot going on. As mentioned, I've got a wedding coming up in 5 months and counting. Done a lot of stuff to try to make that a little bit easier as we move forward. So, thankfully having a little bit of time to be able to get that stuff done has been a good thing. Just lots going on personally and professionally for me. It has not been a quiet last couple of months, but thankfully we're transitioning from chaotic busy to good busy.
Yeah, I know Matt has had a couple of nice winners on the Hong Kong cards, and he's been snake bitten in the pick 3s with them. But he's gotten a couple. I think he had like a 30-1 the other day, 20-1. So he's been getting some nice long prices. I did see you gave out, I believe, like Ruby Lot at a pretty decent price last week.
How did that horse pay $13 and change?
Yeah, that was
I was stunned by that.
Yeah, that's a nice horse. That's a horse I like, and I've definitely made some money off.
That was a fun Class 2 race, by the way. There are some serious horses that we'll see in stakes races later on this year.
And that's going to do it for us here on Drank and Champagne. Obviously, you can check us out at ontherwronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. Andrew, he told you where to find him, at Andrew Champagne on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. We'll be live streaming Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be going ahead and playing a little bit of Turfway Park. We're going to be taking a look ahead at the stakes racing for the weekend. And then, we got You've Got to Be Shatinning Me coming out Friday night. So, lots of stuff going on. Let's make some money, folks. Have a great weekend.
And somebody buy Hialeah.